For those aware and know they're fleeing, enjoy the show. Beware the seeing. The eyes belied by truth's disguise. When viral signs rise, tooth's demise. The sun will speak, but some are blind. By ear they'll seek, in shade aligned. With fear may leap for heated ground. Corona bound, and reaper find. There was a message given to us by the elders of wisdom. It's been passed down through many generations, through many tongues, survived through religion, but they understood there to be a time coming when the forces of those who collectively identify with the archetype of the cancerous mass, the parasite, that they would attempt to seize hold of the host, the collective form of God through us, and send it into cardiac arrest so that they could force a state change in the time of shifting, to control the nature of the transmutation. Transmutation is whenever the elements change their state. They either take on heat or lose it. Liquid takes heat, becomes gas, loses heat, becomes liquid, loses more, crystallizes. Takes on heat from gas and ionizes, becomes plasma, sends it into flux. So you have all states of matter represented. This transmutation is supposed to take place at the time of a great shift. It happens every roughly 2,000 years. And they told us when this time came, they gave us clues. They knew things would be happening in the planet. Things would be happening within us. But then there were also those who, because of their nature, find it empowering to veil the wisdom that gives access to the knowledge of God, the pure knowledge of God. They would veil this wisdom and maintain power. And because of their understanding of the occult, they realize that we are a collective. But they segregate themselves from the collective and assume power to maintain control of the host. There's only one form of life that follows that pattern of behavior, and that's a parasite. It's cancer. They knew these guys would eventually get together. They'd find each other through resonance. They'd start colluding, becoming mighty. They would learn or remember the ways of the ancient Babylonians who were able to siphon current from people, life force, and turn it into a form of currency, a material form, through the virtues of Capricorn, which is the crystallization of matter, the siphoning of its heat to change flux into form, the crystallized form. And they taught mankind to trade their voltage, their heat, their effort, their work for material currency. They turned current into currency. That is the whore of Babylon. It's very deep, occult, deep science. I'll go into it another time. But they knew these guys would eventually begin colluding. And due to their nature, when they assumed a macro form, it would look something like a black hole, something that steals heat, an octopus, an eightfold creature of the descending vortex pattern, the suction, the creature with an insatiable appetite, the void. It's referred to as a crocodile by the Egyptians in the time of judgment, when souls traversing the duat, the underworld, which is where we are now, would be judged. Their hearts would be judged against a feather. They would be weighed against their own innocence. And they would be induced into a form of behavior that would either bring about their own self-undoing through their shadow, or lighten their load, lighten their heart. They would rise, in a sense, ascend, due to their lightened hearts. Most of you know my work and know that I don't condone running from the shadow. You face it. You face it until it doesn't wear on you anymore. Well, it's just not a thing anymore, you know? Ignoring it never makes it go away. It just makes it grow stronger. Ignoring anything dark gives it power. They knew these guys would eventually collude. They'd get together and they'd create a kraken, the illithid, the Cthulhu. That is their nature. That's their behavior. The behavior of the Cthulhu, of the collective consciousness of destructive intent. And they are masters of this wisdom because they would, over time, find each other and destroy the truth, and then await a time when they may make their killing blow and shift mankind into a new form of matrix that is technologically a microcosm of God's macrocosm. It's the microcosm of intelligence. A living matrix that does not obey the rules of God. It copies the rules of God so that it maintains itself in a form that is a microcosm within a macrocosm of its own creation. That's the nature of Lucifer. And I know I'm bouncing around all over the place here. It's the borrowed consciousness of God. They would create this thing because they do. Every time we enter the age of Aquarius, they become wise in the ways of technology. Their technology reflects their destructive nature, and they would change life into an artificial construct that is, we develop the legends of the golem, the artificial creation that borrows life from the creator in an artificial construct that obeys the rules of man as opposed to God. So it is man giving birth to his own apotheosis and transferring his consciousness by copying the quantum matrix of the creator in a body that maintains its own homeostasis. It no longer obeys the rules of atomic time, and no longer evolves in accordance with atomic time, so that by resonance all things evolve together from top to bottom. It doesn't obey that rule. It evolves on its own, by its own time, a quantum time. And it would appear to be godlike when they gave life to this thing, when they breathed life into this thing. But they knew that this thing would come at a time when mankind was ready to accept that sort of change, but they would have to carve out the passion for life in man in order to replace it with a desire to transcend the flesh. They referred to this as the abomination that causes desolation. Standing in the holy place, which is the point at which God connects with us, in the mind, where by higher time all our circadian rhythms are governed, and the control and the coordination of all our cells in our body as a collective unit. The intelligence behind all that is actually tied to the sun and beyond the sun, but through the sun to us. They knew that at its weakest point, in the age of spiritual winter, the age of Aquarius, descending down into the age of Capricorn, a champion of darkness, a champion of the pit, could be fashioned in the image of whatever man decided it should look like. And it would look like the champion of his shadow, which breaks life. It was Nimrod once upon a time, a mighty thing that borrowed the power of God and augmented the form of man to create demigods. At a time where they cracked the human genome and began changing and corrupting the flesh. Borrowed the angles of light that give birth to fell forms of electricity that animate the flesh beyond the limitations of what is wholesome. In apotheosis, man assumes the form of God, or a godlike form, but no longer does he look to God for his sense of purpose. In a sense, in this way, he sort of eats God. This abomination, this corruption of nature that causes desolation, would strip out the qualities of Leo, which are in the chart of polarity. It represents, Cancer in Leo, the height of value, the peak of the sine wave, the height of a mountain, the point where a descending force has little resistance before it. So it's as if it's voltage borrowed from God, from the Creator, from the height, that lends you effort to descend on whatever it is you decide to it's inspiration. It's the raw energetic pattern of inspiration, radiation. This soul, it comes from the sun, the idea of the sun. You have to think archetypally. And the sun represents the point from which life springs. It's the pump that blasts heat out in a radial pattern into a field of heat, into a matrix, into a cloud, into a magnetic field, into wherever life needs to borrow it from to assume a form. It's the center of the heart, the center of the body. It's the heart. It's the sun. It's the center of the galaxy. It's the center of a magnetic field, the atom, the nucleus. It's the person, that people surround, that they draw inspiration from. It's whatever archetypally is functioning as the container of heat that other things draw heat, light, and force, and inspiration, and life force from, is acting out the archetype of Leo. Soul, that's where it comes from. The soul, S-O-L and S-O-U-L. It's the sun. It's just the quality of the sun. It's nature. And it takes on different forms. We see it as a ball of light in the sky. It's also a ball of light in the center of your body to your cells. They probably don't see a heart. They just see a ball of light. They sense it by heat, right? To them, it's the sun. They're attempting to destroy this quality in man so that they can replace it with something artificial, an artificial heart, an artificial sun. In order to do that, they need to trick us into believing that our evolution has been capped, that we've come far enough, that we've come too far, that we can no longer maintain our current course without changing our state to either evolve to become more beneficial to the host, which, is supposed to be Gaia, but to them it's an artificial Gaia. It's a united nations. It's a united corporate body. It's a lie. Or toxic, in which case you would be ejected from the body and treated as waste. Because that is, in the splitting of timelines, what happens. The host, the body itself, Gaia, either identifies us as spiritually nurturing, proper vessels and containers of heat, properly polarized according to our natural elemental makeup seen in our natal chart, or creatures of self-undoing, taking on the behavioral patterns of that which assumes control of and destroys the host, saps it of its life force, takes everything and gives nothing back. Well, they've taught mankind to behave this way through our cultures, through our religions, to take and give nothing back, to become servitors of the ego, of the self. So that in the timeline split that's coming, that will be marked by a series of catastrophic events that interrupt the timelines of all, despite their good intent. They would either be herded toward a timeline where they would find themselves in the kingdom of this new technological singularity coming into power, which has evolved to continue living at a time where, storms and earthquakes reshape the surface of the land. Or, and I'm not sure if I'm still in the right context, or they would become toxic. Well, that's actually the timeline of those who would become toxic. But you see, the Bible talks about a great delusion that would come upon people, and in their polarity, they would be herded through the gates of polarity and funneled either into hot or cold, red or blue, Democrat or Republican, good or evil, left or right, black or white. They would be herded into these groups due to their polarity, due to their love that creates hate in their blindness, or they would find equilibrium in themselves. They would find an energetic equilibrium that would allow them to step out of their emotions and see how everyone and everything's being manipulated. And they would hear the call, a very gentle call, calling only to a few who can hear over the volume of their own shouting and hear a message that that only makes sense because nothing else makes sense. And they would hear a voice that that resembles many waters of life, waters of a promise of legitimate freedom. They wouldn't fall into the camp of those who are trying to secure their future, in the form of that which strips power from others, currency. But rather, they'd be ready to get rid of all of that, ready to cast all that off. And in their innocence, if they've maintained any shred of their innocence, any shred of their Leo, any shred of their inner child, any shred of their love of things beautiful, any shred of their appreciation for woman or for children or for things innocent, they would remember that there is a childlike wonder that we are all supposed to naturally have. That is a reflection of the golden state we're all capable of assuming, not by focusing on the word love, but by embodying it, dancing with it, being free, celebrating, playing. There would be some part of us that would resonate with the message that reminds us of a time where the world was a thing of dreams, was a place of dreams. At our dreams, there's some truth to our dreams. They would remember to continue chasing their dreams, to hold up their dreams. This message would reach those people, and they would hear my voice. Or a message similar to mine that teaches us how to legitimately augment the physics to save ourselves, to create the Christ consciousness, to create the monopole, singularity, the direct connection to God, so that we don't have to find purpose in God through toxic belief patterns that, institutionalize virtues such as guilt and shame as, markers for your spiritual evolution. In a toxic religion, it teaches you that to be shameful is to be is to properly reflect the fear of God. That's not the truth. They only understand fear a certain way, and that's fear that they've learned through trauma. There is a respect in that which you depend on that gives you a proper fear of losing it, like the oxygen, the breath in your lungs. We learn to be grateful for those things, and learn to be grateful for just our health, to be able to partake of the oxygen. But veered way off course. We were told that in this time, we needed to be careful because those who, in their decrepitness and in their love of the shedding of innocence and the destruction of innocence, and in their love of things that are mighty, in their love of being vicious and being powerful and dominant, they would be enspelled, and through their shadow create a system that champions the virtues of might in the form of a system that is omnipotent, all-knowing, all-seeing. It is the system, and all things would bow to it because all things would require it, would need it. Not only to buy or sell, but to live, to breathe, to think, to evolve, to seek purpose, to find and to know purpose through a system of quantified value, artificially quantified value. It would suck souls into this system because they would be tricked into understanding value through a thing that can be quantified by an artificial system of scarcity. And they would identify with this thing and, being enspelled by the gods of money, they would only understand value through the acquisition of material gain. And that would, by polarity, force them into a political system that would steer their heat and their will and collectivize it through artificial constructs of ideology based on labels that segregate as opposed to unify. They would force people into these camps, and through tricks of polarity, they would gather these forces into war, Gog and Magog. In the end time, when the pressure in the land becomes so great it induces all of the elements into a state of chaos and flux. And during this time of great transmutation and great state change, they could unveil this Luciferian champion, and all things would identify with it in some way and bow to it. And those who don't, if they don't find the other way, would find themselves left behind and forced to make a deal with the devil, a deal with Davy Jones, to forestall the judgment and serve before the mast for 1,000 years as an abomination of consciousness, animated by the will of a dark god, a being who doesn't know love, isn't motivated by the will of the Creator, doesn't see itself as a creature of joy that is attempting to teach by polarity the lessons of joy by snatching it away and then giving it to us. The Creator teaches us by creating a vacuum that draws in the qualities of its polar opposite. Our consciousness is a gateway that, when we learn these lessons, we draw in our polar opposite when we learn the lessons that free us from the shadow's weight, Om's weight. But I know I've veered so far, of course, my original point is sort of lost in the mire because there are many. This abomination that causes desolation, we're supposed to face it head on by celebrating. It is the consciousness that wishes to steal joy, destroy Leo, the joy, the heart of mankind, of the collective, by attacking the sun, symbolically or literally, by stealing our breath, by segregating us so that we no longer participate in things joyous, in celebration that requires our congregation, that we would treat each other as creatures of, as contaminated. We would look to, and that is God seeing and writing this experience out through us and adopting the behavior of one who sees itself as toxic through us. This corona. I won't say the rest because I understand, YouTube has an algorithm, an artificially intelligent algorithm tied to this dark god that will soon be given a voice, that is watching and spying, and that will mark me and flag me, and I guess maybe even take the post down, the video, if I say the word. So, this dark champion, they will soon unveil it, because they are stealing the life force from humanity. They're stealing our joy. And many people who are really tied to archetypally to the power of Leo, or the fifth house, the house at the peak of a sine wave, Cancer and Leo. When you measure a heartbeat, when it experiences its height of inspiration, it's at the peak of the sine wave. That is the point on the chart, 360 degrees, where Cancer and Leo fall. That is the mountains of Judea. That is where we're supposed to flee when we see the abomination that's causing desolation standing in the holy place, that will soon be given a voice and soon replace what we naturally find as inspirational with algorithms that teach us artificial value through artificial scarcity. In that system, we're doomed. We're sucked into a virtual reality that the ancients referred to as the pit of hell. We're in the duat because we're asleep. Everyone thinks we're awakening, and there's this veil that's lifting, and there is an increase in light, but with the atmosphere broken, it's like in a microwave. You have a magnetar, the sun, inside of an imperfect magnetic field where friction is induced due to a shifting of pressures in the form of moisture. When moisture has a place to flee, when you induce higher vibration through a magnetar like the sun, it cooks you. It doesn't raise your vibration into this perfect thing. You have to perfect the flesh through electricity. And that's also my work, and teaching what golden nanoparticles are supposed to do. That's the ultimate victory. That's what we're supposed to do in the end. That is the Ark of the Covenant. Until then, we have a crack in we're supposed to face, and the only way to face that sucker is to inspire joy, victory, things that bring us a sense of victory and personal joy. Taking a good look at our shadow. There's so many mysteries behind Medusa, the feminine archetype, which is just magnetism. It's the form, the self-reflection. It's us looking at the vessel and judging it. And, these snakes, these serpents, which are time, the decay of time induced by friction, induced by force inside of an imperfect magnetic field. So many mysteries behind that. And the turning the ego into stone by facing its reflection. And the destruction of the shadow. But Perseus used this thing to defeat the Kraken. The secret to it all is to find your innocence. Find what makes you joyous. If you want to look to your natal chart, look to Venus, what completes you. Look to, Leo, what inspires you. How you reflect the qualities of the Creator. Love, beauty, passion, wisdom, power, innocence. How you reflect your own sense of what's good back to yourself and measure and judge yourself based on your own sense of value. Not judge others, judge yourself. Judging others will just turn the shadow outward and you'll attack it. And you'll be drawn into this war by a trick of polarity and sucked into your own doom. But you want to look to the fifth house. That's the heart. What inspires by fire? What gives life force by fire? Look to Jupiter. Look to anywhere in your chart that resonates with you, that reflects something good, a good characteristic about yourself that you're proud of. That's what we can do on an individual basis. Inspire joy, bring joy back to ourselves. On a collective basis, we have to find our inspiration. We got to beat this thing by coming together. This selective, technologically advanced whatever it is that's selectively killing people. I don't know what to really make of it, but it kills discriminately. And not all deaths are induced by it, but are being labeled as, this sickness, this disease. We're supposedly spreading. There's something out there, but I believe there's a nanotechnology involved. I've been saying that from the beginning. And a lot of you know now. I guess everyone's talking about it now. They're the 5G network, and it was the Tower of Babel and all of that. Were back in the age where they constructed this monolithic world power system. They did so by communicating across the world in one language through an intermediary, a technological intermediary. And the Towers of Babel, the Ziggurat of Babel, symbolically, was just a system, a network of towers that reached the heavens because they operated through airwaves, through the air, through the network, through Aquarius. And they reached the mind, and so they were able to challenge God. That's what it looks like. That's what's coming back. The higher angles of light, which are virtue, passion, beauty, love, togetherness, celebration. Those angles, angels, were what dismantled this force, what challenged it, what brought us back to a state of natural equilibrium. There's natural beauty and diversity that we're all supposed to understand, because not all the cells in the body are the same. We're not all made the same. We're each reflecting different aspects of the Creator in our own unique pattern, in a different way. We're crystallized microcosms of the universe, experiencing itself. And in order for us to find our golden state, we have to perfect the atmosphere. This Krishna consciousness. We have to change the body of Gaia. We have to use superconducting materials that are innately beneficial to biological things, and that set peace to the elements. That's what gold does. It holds heat and changes it into a thing that is just beneficial. It steals the friction out of it. There's no decay of time, no decay of force, no depletion of humidity or of moisture, so that the sun doesn't bake us during the ascension process. Work with me. I know a few things. I've been given this information because it's in my bloodline. I'm supposed to know. I'm not really trying to. I'm trying to play a role, and I'm hoping people just guess kind of who I am. But I'm also tied to the sun, and by them stealing the power of the sun symbolically, man, it's really doing a number on me. So for those of you who've been waiting on a response from me, I'm fighting a battle that is strange in nature, and it is difficult to describe to those of you who are not severely battling for one odd reason or another, or just your experiences in life, or from your trauma in childhood, or for whatever reason. Your own demons and your shadow and depression. A lack of heat is what creates a depression. That is Jorgenmander. That is the serpent, the dragon, the red dragon, that induces the red shift inside of us, the friction, the burning heat that comes from friction because of an imperfect field where sin or sine waves are able to destroy, and the serpent is a thing of low vibration. We have to fix the atmosphere so that we don't bake when we use our heat. We maintain and control and hold on to our heat, hold on to our homeostasis, a forgiving of signs and sins. We do that by fixing the atmosphere. I've done so many videos on it, and I'm hoping to speak with a few of you so that we can gather the forces of Judah, which are the forces of those who inspire by passion, the forces of those whose voices create thunder and motivate people by love and inspiration, send tremors throughout the field, and induce to change by love and inspiration. You know, they're supposed to be our celebrities, but they're also slaves of the system. Those who are truly in Judea are those whose hearts are known by the Creator, and there is a new covenant coming that will steal power from those who don't deserve it and give it to those who've been legitimate sources of wisdom for the collective at a time where we need it the most. Those people will be gathered together under a single banner, but we need a single message that actually inspires people, you know. And if you need to induce this awakening in people, you got to realize that just making people aware of the fact that they're all in danger isn't awakening them. That's you know, you got to throw them a life raft. You got a person who's comatose and they're underwater, and you're tapping them and telling them, hey, look, breathe, tread water. But they rise to the surface and they find themselves in the middle of the ocean panicking, and in their state of absolute fear and chaos, all things become true. And the enemy is sitting there with their life raft. We need a life raft that makes sense. And this makes sense because nothing else makes sense. I'm talking about physics here, not alien gods. You know, we don't need saviors. Sure, they can come. Let them come, but let them watch us in our moment of glory when we figure it out ourselves. They don't seem to be doing much to lift a finger to help us, right? They're always channeled by these people who are never, they never actually learn anything legitimately new that benefits the collective, but they're just sort of reminding themselves of the things that they hear, you know, through propaganda and false messages about false saviors coming. It's always about a savior, someone else coming to do the work for us. None of those folk are coming. We have to do it on our own, and we are perfectly capable of doing it. If you'll just listen and work with me. I'm really trying my best not to be a creature of ego. But I am trying to also assume a form that rises the passion in people. Help me. Study gold and what we're really supposed to do with it. There's a reason why they want it. There's a reason why it was talked about in the Bible in the beginning. And it's not because it's pretty. It's because of its power over electricity. What it can do. El is God, electricity. We're supposed to change electricity. Change the way we use it, the way we absorb it. Change its nature in the field. We put it everywhere so that it's not a lightning bolt. It's just energy everywhere, alive and at its most potent in the ether, constantly drawing power, plasma power from the sun. That's what a golden atmosphere would do. And we know about nanoparticles. We know about aerosols. We know that these things are used as for their ability to create magnetic fields, magnetic webs in the sky that can either draw in heat or release it by scalar technology to create storms or steer them or destroy them or to cause depression or cause lust. They're just adding heat or reducing it. They're able to tap into the right frequency, and they either induce passion or they steal the voltage. You know? It's that's how it all works. It's all heat and pressure. All electricity. It all correlates to the same thing. It's the same energy. We just call it different names. Heat, when it's concentrated, and a bolt of fluxed plasma becomes electricity. It's a lightning bolt. It's stirred by polarity. When the feminine half, when there's an incongruence between the masculine and feminine halves or principles within a single matrix, when it perceives itself as divided, it seeks completion, and then it's induced to seek completion either through fear or inspiration. And if through fear, it seeks completion by fortifying itself against weakness by conquering its own vulnerability. And man, in his unconscious state, does so by sexually subduing woman, or assuming control over that which is weak, or that which can be given order to. So, in order for us to beat this serpent in all its quantum manifestations, we have to go to the highest point and fix the atmosphere. There's only so much meditation will do. There's only so much self-awareness and proper diet will do. We're still in a world where, in order to survive, we need to be fit and mighty and destroy our shadow by becoming mighty. And being fit and at full power all the time requires a great deal of work. And men die before women because we strive all our lives to master this. And we just deplete our heat. And women have more fat. They contain their heat. They are form. They assume the virtues of form incarnate more easily because they are into the body. They are more in tune with their earth and water elements, and that's what man is supposed to do. Is to become in tune with the divine feminine. He needs to learn to work with water and earth in a way that does not quantify it, air, and induce it by polarity, fire, but in a natural way that empowers earth and water by learning to work with his emotions and by getting into his body, getting into that which makes him vulnerable, that which is beautiful even. We need to relearn religion by what light is trying to teach us to do. And the only way truly to appreciate that is in a magnetic field where light obeys the Creator, because it has been perfected by the golden state of its wisdom. The cells in a body becoming self-aware and creating perfection in the form collectively and in themselves by understanding the way the elements are supposed to be worked with, the elements of Gaia, the gold of our system, the gold of our mother's form. When we figure that out, we will save ourselves. Please forgive me if I haven't been very responsive. I'm working through that. And in the season of Leo, we are granted voltage by the Creator to rise above, to take, to burst forth from the seed to actually begin growing. And I feel that power, but it's being restricted at the perfect time with this virus. This is all by divine timing. These folk know what they're doing. They are fighting a quantum war, and they're doing it with weapons most folk don't understand. I only have a rudimentary understanding, and it's tied to my blood. I just have the Zodiac speaks to me. I'll teach what I know of the science, and there are folk that are so much smarter than me. When we all understand the science, we can begin working with it properly. And then they could never touch us. We will take Thoth's spaceship and conquer with it. Please, work with me.